One night, a call came to the police department. The caller's voice was that of a frightened person who informed them that he heard screams coming from the house of his neighbor, businessman Joseph. A group of police officers rushed over, and when they entered Joseph's house, they searched everywhere but found nothing. There was a basement in the house, and when one of them entered it, he was shocked by the sight he saw. Joseph was found hanged in a strange manner, and his body was grotesquely mutilated. His eyes were gouged out and his fingers were severed. The police noticed a phrase written on the wall in blood: "You will not escape the shadow." This phrase made the police feel that this crime was unusual. There was a smart and seasoned detective named Ali. When Ali arrived at the crime scene, he noticed something unusual about the place, as if the murderer were still present in the house watching them. While he examined the corpse, the lights went out, and a mysterious whispering and laughter echoed throughout the basement, instilling fear in everyone's hearts. The security team rushed to restore the power, and when the lights were turned back on, they found a new symbol drawn by the killer with the victim's blood on the wall. After a long search, they found nothing, and the next day, the neighbors were summoned to investigate whether they had noticed anything that could lead them to the killer, but everyone said they hadn't seen anything. 2 days later, while searching, Detective Ali received a mysterious message containing the address of an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. Detective Ali decided, along with 2 of his companions, to head there. That night was cold, with silence and darkness enveloping the place. When they entered, they noticed shadows moving in the corners of the factory, but they didn't find anyone. Suddenly, they heard footsteps behind them, but when they turned around, they saw no one. As Ali approached the heart of the factory, he found pictures on the walls of the killer's victims, grotesquely disfigured and hanging by threads in a gruesome scene. Suddenly, he heard laughter and incomprehensible whispers, and all the doors slammed shut, trapping them inside as the dim lights began to glow and shadows of hanging people moved rapidly around them. They felt in danger, and Ali called for a support team. After a few minutes, the team arrived at the factory, opened the doors, and the shadows and sounds vanished. They searched every corner of the factory, but found no trace except for the drawings on the walls. As dawn approached, Ali and the team returned to their homes after a long and tiring night. 2 days later, Ali found another encrypted message, the content of which was an abandoned house in one of the nearby villages. Ali made a reckless decision and decided to go to that house alone. When he arrived at the abandoned house, he entered quietly and was very cautious. Suddenly, he found a hanging corpse, but it was only half a body, and the other half was chopped up using a saw in a horrifying manner. When Ali found this scene, he was filled with horror, but he composed himself and began to examine the place. He found shattered mirrors in every room throughout the house. Suddenly, he heard a voice echoing from all around the house, as if a group of people were whispering the same words, as if the killer was playing with Ali's mind. Ali cautiously roamed through the house, observing every reflection in the mirrors, expecting the killer to be hiding behind one of them. As he checked all the rooms, he reached one room and noticed there were mirrors that weren't broken. And at the same time, he observed that the mirrors reflected the image of a person behind him by several steps. In a moment of sharp realization, Ali moved slowly towards the mirror, touched it gently, and understood that the killer was standing right behind him, hiding and waiting for the decisive moment to attack. With cleverness, Ali used the mirror's reflection to his advantage and made a sudden move, spinning around quickly and striking the killer with a metal rod that was on the ground. The surprise attack thwarted the killer's plan, and Ali managed to temporarily hold on to him. But somehow the killer slipped out of Ali's grip and fled into the darkness, leaving behind another clue in their ongoing cat-and-mouse game. Ali chased after him, but the killer quickly escaped, leaving behind questions filling Ali's mind. He called in the team to take the body, and when they examined the body, they discovered it belonged to another businessman named Salim. One day, he received a call from a woman screaming that someone had broken into her house and killed her husband in a terrifying manner. She added that he was still in the house, and suddenly she screamed loudly, saying he was coming for her and had a knife. Ali asked her about his features, and she said he was tall and had scars on his face, as if disfigured. After a moment, Ali heard her voice gurgling as the killer had stabbed her in the neck. Ali and his team rushed to the house of the woman who had called him, and when they entered, they found blood everywhere, and they discovered her dead with her head severed from her body. They found out that the murdered man was a businessman named Andy and his wife was named Susan. They also later discovered that when the killer broke into the house, he found the man and killed him, not noticing the presence of his wife, who was upstairs. Ali and his companions examined the house and the bodies, and they found a phrase written in blood: "You will not escape from the shadow." When Ali returned to his office, he reviewed the criminal files and found a file for a person named Jimmy, who matched all the descriptions the woman had given before she was killed. When he examined Jimmy's file, he found that he had a history of attempted murder and robbery of shops, and had been imprisoned for 2 years for various charges, the most important of which was the attempted murder of a merchant friend after a minor disagreement between them. Ali and his companions searched for his background and gathered confidential information from people close to him without Jimmy knowing, compiling all data and information about his life since childhood. Jimmy was a small child living in a poor neighborhood full of crime and violence. His father was a member of a drug trafficking gang and was known for his brutality and cruelty. The house that was supposed to be a safe haven for Jimmy and his mother turned into a scene of violence and suffering. His father continuously beat him and treated his mother brutally. One day, the anger and violence reached a boiling point. His father, in a fit of rage, began to beat Jimmy severely. His mother tried to intervene to save her son, but his father did not back down. Instead, he struck her too, and this blow was fatal. The mother collapsed unconscious, and Jimmy had no way to save her. A neighbor heard the noise and rushed to help the mother, but it was too late. The mother died after being taken to the hospital. This incident left Jimmy shattered inside and feeling a rage that was indescribable. After his mother's death, Jimmy lived in a state of deep anger and sadness. He became a desperate and rebellious child, living homeless in the streets away from his father. When he turned 15, he joined a gang that broke into shops and looted them. Jimmy was very smart, and over time, problems arose between him and the gang leader, which led to his departure from the gang. However, he formed another gang and became the leader of that new gang, which he named the Shadow Gang. He succeeded in robbing shops in the city and became a wealthy person. One day he met Maya and fell in love with her. Their feelings were mutual. Maya was impressed by his intelligence, and he gifted her expensive gifts, jewelry, and luxury cars, which made her cling to him even more. Over time, he decided to marry her and they got married. But after 2 years of marriage, he discovered that his wife was having an affair with his businessman friend. After confirming his wife's infidelity, he was devastated and decided to leave the city, disappearing without anyone knowing his whereabouts. One day, they found his wife hanged in her house, but they found no evidence of murder, concluding that it was a suicide. Detective Ali was astonished by Jamie's story, and here he realized that he was facing a very clever serial killer, capable of hiding himself and concealing evidence. However, Ali decided to use Jamie's intelligence against him. He searched for William, Jamie's old friend, who had previously attempted to kill him. After his investigation, he found information indicating that William had left for one of the European countries, but he decided to contact him and ask for his cooperation with the police. After William agreed, Ali asked him to post on Facebook that he would be returning to the country, which was a fake post. 2 days later, he created a fake image of himself inside his house. Detective Ali turned on the lights in William's house, but this time he used surveillance cameras at every entrance. However, that night he did not see any strange movements. The nights passed, and Detective Ali was waiting. One night, after midnight, he noticed a strange movement at the front door. A person was climbing over the gate and placed a dummy in the bedroom, covering it as if it were a sleeping person. Ali had climbed on top of the wardrobe, waiting for Jamie to arrive. Indeed, he heard slow footsteps approaching the room, and suddenly someone stood next to the bed holding a knife in his hand. In an instant, Ali jumped down from the wardrobe to take Jamie down, but this time Jamie could not escape Ali's grip. Ali restrained him and called for the police. It was only moments before they arrived and took him to the police station, placing him in custody. At the beginning of the interrogation, he denied all the charges against him, but after days of interrogation and torture, he confessed and revealed all his crimes. He was tried, and after the trial he was sentenced to death. Before his execution, he looked at Detective Ali with a look of terror and laughed, and the sound of his laughter was the same as the one Ali and his colleagues heard when they were at the basement crime scene. He was executed, and thus the saga of a serial killer came to an end. Detective Ali was promoted and honored, and this is the end of the story.